The night in St. Petersburg is a dark and oppressive shroud, tinged only by the pale light of street lamps and the distant glow of the Nevsky Prospect spotlights. In the shadows of a narrow street, where the biting cold seems to whisper ancient secrets, a group of men moves with an almost ghostly precision. Among them is Dmitri, the leader of a daring and dangerous plan. Dmitri, with his sharp eyes and an expression mixing concentration and a hint of euphoria, takes one last look at his watch. The moment is approaching, and he knows every second counts. They are about to break into the Baranov mansion, an old and imposing stone structure that, decades ago, was the stage of an infamous mystery. Inside lies an artifact that, according to legend, is the key to unimaginable power. The mansion, known to locals as the House of Echoes, has a reputation that scares even the bravest souls. If the stories are true, the artifact, a relic carved from dark metal and adorned with enigmatic symbols, has the power to corrupt even the strongest of wills. But for Dmitri and his men, the danger is a small price to pay for such a grand reward. With almost absolute silence, Dmitri signals for the group to begin. They move to the mansion's side entrance, where an old staircase leads to a basement window, providing an easy way in. The team leader uses a sophisticated tool to break the window, and with careful effort, the group enters the dark interior of the house. The corridors, lit only by the dim light of their lanterns, reveal walls covered with dusty tapestries and furniture draped in white sheets, creating an atmosphere of desolation and abandonment. The air is heavy, laden with a smell of dampness and decay, which seems to come alive with each step they take. As they head toward the location of the artifact, Dmitri can't help but feel a chill down his spine. The mansion seems to have a presence of its own, a consciousness that watches and waits. It's a feeling of being observed, of being on the verge of awakening something that should remain dormant. Finally, they reach a large room where the artifact is kept, on a stone pedestal carved with ancient runes. The object, wrapped in a mysterious aura, is there, waiting to be taken from its sanctuary. Dmitri approaches cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. The mission is about to be completed, but a shadow of doubt begins to loom over him, a feeling that the real challenge is just beginning. With a final look at his companions, Dmitri gives the signal to move. The operation is underway, and as his men's skilled hands remove the artifact from the pedestal, a low, unsettling sound fills the room, as if the very environment is awakening to what is about to happen. At this moment, the mansion seems to stir, as if trying to resist the intruder, and a biting cold sweeps through the corridors, signaling that the real game is about to begin. The cursed artifact is a piece of mystery and terror, almost as if it had emerged from a dark nightmare. Dmitri and his team watch in silence, fascinated and somewhat apprehensive, as they remove it from the pedestal. The relic is an ancient icon, carved from a dark, gleaming metal, covered with enigmatic symbols that seem to move under the faint lantern light. The details are disturbing. The artifact's surface is covered with an intricate intertwining of runes and grotesque figures, whose shapes and contours distort in ways that defy human understanding. It seems as if the metal is alive, pulsating with a palpable energy that threatens to leap out at any moment. The runes, written in an archaic language, glow with a faint red hue that seems to pierce through the surrounding darkness. Local legend speaks of this artifact, known as the Heart of St. Petersburg, forged in a time of great tragedies and forbidden magic. It was a gift from an ancient czar for a ritual that promised absolute power to its possessor, but it also carried a merciless curse. The story tells that those who sought it were destined to suffer and, in some cases, lose their very souls. Dmitri examines the object with a mixture of reverence and fear. He feels the weight of the artifact not just in his hands, but also in his soul, as if carrying a burden that cannot be ignored. The energy emanating from it seems to manifest as an invisible presence, making the surrounding atmosphere even more oppressive and dark. As the group tries to handle the artifact, a sense of unease spreads. It is as if the house is somehow reacting to the touch of the relic. Every movement of the thieves seems to resonate with a distant echo, a kind of murmur that grows in intensity as the artifact is moved. Dmitri and his men try to focus, ignoring the growing feeling that something terrible is about to happen. But as the artifact is finally placed in a transport bag, the environment around them seems to begin transforming. The cold in the room becomes more intense, and a rising sense of dread envelopes the group, as if the artifact itself is emitting an aura of menace. The relic is now in Dmitri's hands, and though he feels relieved to have completed his part of the plan, an unsettling feeling persists. What once seemed like a simple theft now reveals itself as something much more sinister and complex. The artifact, with its aura of curse and hidden power, promises more than just a reward. It promises a terrifying fate that is only beginning to unfold. As Dmitri and his team hurry to leave the mansion, a strange sensation begins to settle in. The silence that was once comforting now feels heavy with oppressive tension. Their hurried footsteps echo through the dark corridors as they move quickly, trying to escape before something goes wrong. But something does go wrong. The first sign comes as a faint whisper, almost imperceptible, floating through the air. Dmitri, with visible tension on his face, raises his head and listens, trying to pinpoint the source of the sound. The others, distracted and exhausted, don't immediately notice the change in the atmosphere. As they move forward, the temperature drops drastically. The air around them becomes heavy and damp, and a cold mist begins to form, covering the floor and making each step increasingly difficult. The group moves more cautiously now, their movements accompanied by a growing sense that something is watching them. The sounds become clearer, and soon a series of strange noises fills the silence, the creaking of doors closing on their own, the sound of footsteps echoing with no visible source, and whispers that seem to come from all directions. The feeling of being followed is palpable, and each team member tries to ignore the rising fear, but their pale faces and anxious glances betray the truth. As they approach the exit, the whispers turn into distant, disturbing screams, and a sinister shadow seems to move along the walls around them. Dmitri tries to stay calm, urging the others to keep moving, but the atmosphere is thick with a presence that becomes increasingly invasive. The artifact in his possession pulses unsettlingly, as if emitting an energy that affects the environment. When they finally reach the exit, the scene takes an even more sinister turn. The door that should lead to freedom is blocked, and a sense of despair begins to set in. The shadows in the room grow denser, and undefined shapes seem to move at the edge of their vision. The guardians of the artifact, though invisible, leave a clear impression that they will not allow anyone to escape with what was stolen. The group begins to panic, trying to force the exit or find an alternative route, but the mansion seems to have transformed into a labyrinth of nightmares. The walls appear to shift and close in, making escape increasingly impossible. The tension reaches its peak when one of the team members, consumed by fear, turns to the others and starts questioning if the mission was worth it. At this moment, the terror becomes palpable. The environment seems alive, and every shadow, every sound, appears to be part of a plan to trap the group inside that cursed house. Dmitri, still holding the artifact, realizes that the real challenge has just begun. The mansion, with all its secrets and horrors, is now revealing itself in ways he could never have imagined. As Dmitri and his team struggle to find a way out of the mansion, a sudden, piercing sound fills the air, the crash of doors slamming open violently and the echo of heavy footsteps reverberating through the corridors. The atmosphere, already oppressive, now feels charged with imminent danger. With a growing sense of panic, the group scatters, trying to find an escape route. That's when they see the first figures, macabre guardians of the artifact, emerging from the shadows. These beings are a nightmare vision, tall, with skeletal bodies and waxy, pale faces, their eyes glowing with a supernatural, unsettling light. They move with a sinister agility, like shadows animated by the darkness itself. Dmitri tries to lead the others through a narrow corridor, but the Guardians are always one step ahead. The air around them seems to vibrate with a strange, icy energy, and a sense of doom hangs over the group. Each time a Guardian appears, a terrifying scream echoes down the corridor, as if the very environment is reacting to their presence. The Guardians are not just immortal, they possess a power that seems to transcend reality. As they pass, objects around them start to move on their own, furniture spins, doors slam shut with force, and the walls pulse as if alive. The mansion, once a structure of stone and wood, now transforms into a chaotic labyrinth of nightmares. In a moment of desperation, Dmitri and his team find a room that seems to be a temporary refuge. They crouch down, panting and terrified, trying to catch their breath. But the safety is brief. The Guardians breach the room, their presence triggering a tumult of supernatural forces. The lantern light flickers and dies, plunging them into near-total darkness. In the dark, Dmitri sees the Guardians approaching, their skeletal forms illuminated only by the red glow of the runes on the artifact. One of the Guardians extends a spectral hand, and a wave of cold energy sweeps through the room, making the team members shiver and collapse to the floor. Each step of the Guardians is a reminder that they are immortal, here to protect the artifact at all costs. The battle becomes desperate and frantic. Dmitri and his men fight these dark entities with whatever they have, but their weapons and tools seem useless against the Guardian's supernatural power. The terror is palpable, and the feeling of being trapped in an endless nightmare intensifies. Every movement, every scream, and every attempt to flee seems in vain. The Guardian's presence is overwhelming, as if they are the very manifestation of the curse protecting the artifact. As the minutes pass, the sensation that the mansion is closing in around them becomes inescapable, and the struggle for survival becomes a battle against forces beyond human comprehension. The group finds themselves increasingly cornered, and Dmitri begins to understand that the true nature of the Guardians is an even deeper and more terrifying mystery than he could have imagined. They are the keepers of a dark, ancient secret, and now, confronting them means facing the very terror that dwells within the depths of the mansion. The room where Dmitri and his team seek refuge is a prison of nightmares. The walls, now covered in a dark, viscous mist, seem to close in around them, creating a labyrinth of corridors and doors that distort and change with every passing moment. The floor is coated with a thick layer of dust, and the ancient furniture, worn by time, seems to have a life of its own, moving slowly as if it were part of the mansion's structure. As the Guardians continue to approach, Dmitri and the others realize that the mansion is alive, reacting to the intruders. The air is heavy and relentless, making it hard to breathe. Every corridor seems to lead to another place, and the once existent signs of direction have vanished, replaced by an overwhelming sense of disorientation and fear. With a growing feeling that something terrible is about to happen, Dmitri tries to guide his group through the maze. They pass through a series of rooms, each stranger and more disturbing than the last. In one room, the mirrors are covered with a layer of grime, but in the clean parts, distorted images of horrifying faces and expressions of despair appear, as if the mansion itself is reflecting the intruders' fears and anxieties. In another room, a large tapestry, though not the one mentioned earlier, covers an entire wall. However, instead of decorative patterns, the tapestry depicts scenes of torment and horror, with figures that seem to move and twist as if they were scenes from a vivid nightmare. Each step towards these scenes makes the figures' screams louder, filling the room with a terrifying cacophony. Dmitri and his team try to stay together, but the mansion seems to use every fear and weakness against them. The labyrinth of corridors appears to expand and contract, and the feeling of being lost intensifies. As they move forward, they encounter doors that cannot be opened and stairs that lead to deeper levels of the mansion, where the air is colder and the presence of the guardians stronger. Tension peaks when one team member, panicked, begins running in random directions, screaming in despair. His actions only add to the chaos permeating the environment. The walls start to close in even more, and the feeling that the mansion is trying to swallow them whole is almost physical. At a crucial moment, Dmitri finds a room with a large table covered in strange, ancient objects, dusty books, wooden boxes, and forgotten magical instruments. He examines the items, hoping to find a clue or an exit, but the atmosphere only becomes more sinister. Open books reveal pages with macabre formulas and rituals, and a mysterious box, seemingly made to contain something very powerful, emits a cold energy that makes the hairs on Dmitri's neck stand on end. As the group continues to navigate the labyrinth, the terror and sense of despair become palpable. The environment grows increasingly distorted, with the corridors and rooms blending into a nightmare maze that defies any attempt at logic. The mansion is becoming an entity of its own, a malevolent being that uses terror and confusion to keep the intruders within its grasp. Dmitri and the others are now fully immersed in a nightmare, and each step they take only leads them deeper into the darkness. The fight for survival becomes a battle against an environment that seems to adapt and react to every move, and reality dissolves into a chaos of horror and despair. As Dmitri and his team continue their tortuous journey through the mansion's labyrinth, they come across a room that seems different from the others, an ancient library, with books and scrolls scattered haphazardly on dark wooden shelves. The air is thick with the smell of aged paper and mold, and the dim lantern light casts dancing shadows on the walls covered with faded tapestries. The group members are exhausted and on the verge of despair, but Dmitri insists that the library might hold valuable information about the artifact and the mansion's history. They begin to rummage through the books, flipping through pages filled with arcane symbols and ancient writings. Amid the chaos, a book falls from a shelf, opening to a specific page that seems to be the center of a dark conspiracy. Dmitri bends down to examine the book. The pages reveal descriptions of ancient rituals and the story of a czar who, in a desperate act to secure his immortality, made a pact with forces beyond comprehension. The cursed artifact that Dmitri and his team stole is described as the key to a dark force sealed within the mansion. The runes and symbols on the artifact are identified as containment seals, designed to keep the malevolent power imprisoned. As Dmitri reads, the environment around them begins to change subtly, almost imperceptibly, but deeply disturbingly. The shadows on the walls seem to lengthen and stretch, and the cold in the room grows more intense, as if the mansion is absorbing the book's words and reacting to them. The library, once seemingly safe, starts to transform into a place of growing terror. The reading reveals a connection between the artifact and a series of tragedies that occurred in the mansion, mysterious deaths, disappearances, and supernatural events that haunted St. Petersburg over the years. Dmitri discovers that the macabre guardians are the spirits of the Tsar's former servants, condemned to protect the artifact and ensure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. As the group reads more, a disturbing sound begins to fill the air, the whisper of distant voices, as if the spirits of the mansion are trying to communicate. The voices grow clearer, blending into a chorus of laments and screams, echoing through the library and making the floor vibrate with dark energy. At the height of the tension, a series of books starts moving on their own, falling from the shelves and scattering across the floor. The ancient texts open, and the words seem to glow with a sinister light, as if coming to life. The lantern light flickers, and the shadows thrash wildly, creating distorted figures on the walls. With his heart racing, Dmitri realizes that the environment is becoming increasingly oppressive and that the library is turning into a trap. The knowledge they sought is not only bringing an understanding of the artifact but also intensifying the supernatural forces surrounding them. The Guardians, still invisible, are closer, and the feeling that the mansion is preparing for a final confrontation becomes almost tangible. As the group tries to gather their strength and find a way to escape, the library reveals its darkest secrets, a final warning that the true terror is just beginning and that the mansion has a more active and malevolent role than they could have imagined. The weight of their newfound knowledge bears down on them, and the battle for survival becomes even more desperate. The mansion's labyrinth is in complete disarray, and exhaustion and fear are starting to erode the morale of Dmitri's group. They take refuge in a room that appears to be an old banquet hall, with wide tables covered in dusty cloths and unlit chandeliers hanging from the walls. The atmosphere is heavy with the sense of a once glorious past now dark and desolate. Dmitri tries to regain control, determined to find a way out, but the tension among the team members is becoming evident. Repressed frustrations and fears start to surface, and trust between them is disintegrating. Suspicious glances and harsh words become common, and the situation grows even more unstable when one member begins to question Dmitri's leadership and the mission's worth. Amid this growing discord, Dmitri tries to keep focus, explaining that their only chance of survival is to keep moving forward and find a way to lift the curse. But the pressure of the environment and the weight of the cursed artifact begin to affect each of them in different ways. Some are consumed by fear, while others are losing their sanity, shaken by the constant presence of the Guardians and the mansion's oppressive atmosphere. The tension reaches a breaking point when one team member, in a desperate act, decides the only way out is to get rid of the artifact. In a frantic attempt, he tries to take the artifact from Dmitri, resulting in a physical struggle. The confrontation is violent and chaotic, and the banquet hall turns into a battlefield where trust is lost and friendships are destroyed. During the fight, the mansion reacts with a sudden surge of dark energy. The walls of the room seem to close in, and the temperature plummets, making the environment even more unbearable. The feeling of being watched intensifies, and the Guardian screams and whispers become sharper and more disturbing. The atmosphere is charged with a growing sense that something terrible is about to happen. Finally, Dmitri manages to regain control of the artifact, but the cost is high. The group is divided, with trust in ruins and morale in a state of despair. They are more vulnerable than ever, and the mansion's hostile environment seems to be exploiting every weakness and crack in their group. The internal tension is as intense as the external threat from the Guardians. Dmitri realizes that the fight for survival is not only against the supernatural forces surrounding them but also against the very disintegration of his team. The mission becomes not just a battle against evil but also a struggle to maintain the group's cohesion and find a way to overcome the distrust and fear now undermining their chances of escaping alive. With the team divided and the environment more hostile than ever, Dmitri knows that every decision from this point on will be crucial. Survival depends not only on facing the mansion's horrors but also on uniting a group on the brink of collapse. The feeling that time is running out is palpable, and the terror only increases as the mansion seems to prepare for its next sinister move. With the team fragmented and morale in shambles, Dmitri decides to press on, determined to find an exit or a way to reverse the curse plaguing the mansion. The group heads down one of the last unexplored corridors, moving with a mix of fear and hope. As night deepens, the shadows grow longer, and the silence is broken only by the unsettling whispers of the approaching Guardians. The corridor is a dark, narrow tunnel, with walls lined with broken picture frames and faded tapestries that sway slowly as if moved by a cold breeze. The lantern light illuminates only part of the path, while darkness swallows the rest, creating the impression of an endless passage. As they proceed, Dmitri and the group find an ancient, ornate door covered with symbols matching the runes on the artifact. The feeling that this door might lead to something crucial is palpable, and Dmitri decides they must investigate it. With difficulty, they force their way in, revealing a room that appears to be an old temple or ritual chamber. The interior is surprisingly well preserved, with walls adorned with arcane inscriptions and unlit candles arranged in a complex circle on the floor. In the center of the room stands a stone altar with an old book resting on it, its pages open and covered in dust. The book seems to contain instructions or ancient rituals, and the sense that this is the key to understanding the curse is strong. Dmitri approaches the altar, and as he examines the book, he discovers it reveals a ritual to neutralize the artifact's curse. The words are hard to decipher, but the ritual requires an ancient sacrificial procedure involving all the group members and the use of a specific relic, the very relic they stole. As Dmitri reads the instructions, the surroundings start to stir unsettlingly. The circle of candles begins to light up one by one, casting an eerie glow on the symbols and inscriptions on the walls. The shadows seem to come alive, and the Guardian's whispers grow more intense and desperate as if they are closing in on the room. The atmosphere becomes charged with tense, threatening energy. The book, with its ancient words and dark rituals, becomes a symbol of both hope and despair. Dmitri realizes the ritual might be their only way to break free from the curse, but performing it is risky and fraught with uncertainties. Moreover, the increasing presence of the Guardian suggests the room may not remain safe for long. The team, now fueled by new hope, prepares to perform the ritual, each member grappling with their fears and hesitations. They position themselves according to the instructions, trying to stay focused despite the growing sense that the mansion is about to collapse around them. The environment becomes more unstable and oppressive, with the candles burning intensely and the shadows growing more menacing. The tension peaks as Dmitri begins the ritual, and the room responds with a series of supernatural phenomena. The book pulses with a glowing light, and the floor vibrates with an ancient energy. The feeling that the ritual could be the key to survival is mixed with the anxiety that the Guardians could interrupt the process at any moment. Time is running out, and the battle between the hope for a solution and the imminent terror reaches a dramatic climax. The ritual reaches its climax, and the room begins to transform into a supernatural battlefield. The candles burn with a blinding intensity, casting a red, flickering light that illuminates the symbols and inscriptions on the walls with almost tangible force. Dmitri and the team follow the book's instructions with frantic precision, their movements increasingly hurried as the pressure in the room mounts. As the ritual progresses, the presence of the Guardians becomes more threatening. They appear in large numbers, their spectral and distorted forms moving with supernatural agility. Their eyes glow with a cold, inhuman light, and their presence emits a chilling energy that makes the air feel even heavier and more oppressive. The sound of their wails and screams mixes with the noise of the ritual, creating a terrifying cacophony that reverberates through the room. With each step of the ritual, the floor vibrates with growing force, and the supernatural energy emanating from the room creates waves of distortion in the surroundings. The walls ripple and the ceiling seems to close in, as if the mansion itself is rebelling against what is about to happen. Dmitri and his team struggle to maintain their concentration, their faces pale and marked by fear. The Guardians, with increasing fury, begin to attack. They move toward the circle of candles, trying to disrupt the ritual and destroy what Dmitri and the others are trying to achieve. The room becomes a field of chaos and supernatural violence, with the Guardians' forces desperately trying to prevent the ritual from being completed. Amidst the turmoil, Dmitri realizes that something deeper and more disturbing is happening. The book, now glowing with a supernatural light, reveals a shocking twist. The ritual not only attempts to neutralize the curse but also uncovers a hidden truth about the artifact. He discovers that the curse is a reflection of the Tsar's own corruption and pain, and the ritual is also exposing the Tsar's dark essence, which was sealed within the artifact. The room's energy reaches a critical point as the ritual begins to unravel under the Guardian's attack. The stone altar cracks, and a fissure opens in the floor, revealing an underground chamber filled with absolute darkness. The artifact, now glowing intensely, pulses with an energy that escalates as the battle unfolds. Determined to complete the ritual, Dmitri faces the Guardians with desperate courage. Each team member is pushed to the limit of their strength, fighting to protect the circle of candles and keep their focus on the book. The chaos in the room peaks, with the Guardians attacking with blind fury and the mansion reacting with destructive force. In the final moment of the ritual, an explosion of light and energy occurs, sending a wave of heat and force through the room. The ground shakes, and the shadows of the Guardians become unstable, as if being absorbed by the light. Dmitri and the others are thrown to the floor, and the sense that something monumental is about to happen is almost unbearable. When the light finally fades, the room is in complete silence. The candles are extinguished, and the supernatural energy that filled the space dissipates. The Guardians have vanished, and the oppressive sensation that once dominated the mansion begins to lift. The artifact, now devoid of the dark aura that surrounded it, rests silently on the altar. The group is exhausted and injured, but there is a sense of triumph and relief. Despite the chaos and violence, the ritual seems to have succeeded in neutralizing the curse, and the mansion shows signs that the dark power that once controlled it has been broken. The final battle has left deep scars, but the hope that an exit is near becomes a light at the end of the tunnel, giving Dmitri and the survivors a chance to escape and find the peace that once seemed impossible. After the intense battle in the ritual room, the mansion seems to have entered a state of uneasy calm. Dmitri and the few survivors rise from the floor, their bodies and spirits marked by the struggle. The atmosphere around them is strange, a mix of relief and lingering tension, as if the mansion itself is exhausted after its battle against the ritual. The group moves slowly through the now silent corridors. There is a palpable sense that the mansion still holds secrets, but a growing feeling that the curse has finally been broken. The walls, once covered in shadows and malevolent symbols, seem to have regained some of their original appearance, and while the environment remains oppressive, it no longer carries the same immediate threat. As they walk, Dmitri and the others notice subtle changes in the surroundings. The doors and corridors, which once seemed distorted and unyielding, now follow a more logical pattern, as if the mansion itself is allowing a path to escape. The floor, once trembling and menacing, is now firm and stable. However, the feeling that something is still about to happen persists. The group encounters one final room, a hidden chamber behind a secret door that Dmitri discovers while investigating the corridors. The room is unlike any other. It seems to be some sort of sanctuary or memorial, with a central altar and a series of ancient objects arranged around it. In the center of the altar, there is an old mirror, adorned with runes and symbols that glow with a soft, mysterious light. Dmitri approaches the mirror, and as he looks into it, he sees images of the mansion's past, visions of the Tsar, the Guardians, and the tragedies that have occurred over the years. The images are vivid and disturbing, showing the true cost of the curse and the suffering of those affected by it. The mirror reveals a familiar face, a portrait of the Tsar with an expression of regret and despair, as if he is apologizing for all he has caused. The revelation in the mirror is accompanied by a deep sense of sadness. Dmitri realizes that the curse was not just a matter of evil power, but a manifestation of the pain and remorse of a man consumed by the quest for eternal power. The mansion, with all its horror and chaos, was a prison for these emotions. As the group watches, the mirror begins to shine intensely, and a wave of light fills the room. The energy focuses on the cursed artifact, which seems to be purified by the light. The runes on the artifact fade, and the feeling that the dark power has finally been eliminated is palpable. Dmitri, feeling the weight of what has been revealed, looks at his companions. They are exhausted, but there is a glimmer of hope in their eyes. The sense that they are about to escape the mansion is intense, and the group prepares to leave the sanctuary and head for the exit. When they finally reach the mansion's exit, they are met with a surprising sight. The city of St. Petersburg is illuminated by the light of dawn, and the mansion, now in ruins, seems to have been completely stripped of its dark aura. The sun begins to rise on the horizon, and the city seems to come alive, with a sense of renewal and hope in the air. Dmitri and the survivors, marked by the experience, look back with a mix of relief and sadness. They have overcome the terror of the mansion, but the cost of the journey has left its marks. The city around them is full of life, but what they have endured will never be forgotten. With renewed hope and the weight of the revelations finally lifting, Dmitri and the others head into the city, leaving behind a story of terror and struggle, but carrying with them the certainty that they faced and overcame the evil that haunted St. Petersburg. The mansion, now a distant memory, stands as a testament to the horror and courage that defined their journey.